Hey, hello, welcome, good morning. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL, tournament strategy show. Dave Loughran, Greg Ehrenberg. Nice to see. It's been a while, brother. How you doing?
It's been about 8 hours, something like that, 10 hours, 12 hours. I forget exactly what time we got off doing the show last night, and then you and I were hanging out talking for a little bit, and then delayed a little bit this morning too. I know people often will give you shit in the YouTube for the show starting late. It was my fault this morning. It was garbage day, and I totally forgot. So I'm sitting here, I'm getting ready for the show. I hear the garbage truck coming down the street, and I had to sprint outside in 18-degree weather.
Perfect. Yeah, mine was delayed today because of Christmas. Usually it comes on Wednesday. It came yesterday. I shot out there, did the same thing. I forgot to give him money, though. I'll do it next week. I don't give him cards, though. I go up to him and I say, Merry Christmas, and I just give him like a 20.
Okay. Yeah, I don't give my garbage men anything for the holidays. What I do give them, though, is if I have like a lot of stuff I put out, I'll give them some cash.
Well, see, that's the thing. It's cool around here. They'll take pretty much anything, and they have free bulk pickup that comes whenever. So I figure this guy, because it's not that tough of a job anymore. If you're just sitting in the truck and you have the arm go out and pick it.
Yeah.
It used to be that if you were a trash man, you had 7 herniated discs by 31. Like picking up refrigerators and now it's a little bit different, but this guy always gets out. He's helped me out in a big way all the time. And if I forget to put my cans out, he'll walk up and grab them and bring them down and then put them back. So like kind of deserves it.
There we go. Yeah. You'd have to be one of the world's strongest men to be a garbage man 15 years ago.
It's true. Yeah. My good friend, my best childhood friend, his cousin destroyed his back when a couple of them were putting the refrigerator into the back of the truck. Anyway, happy to have you guys with us. It's a fun day to talk some football. We got a Saturday and a Sunday slate. If you don't mind, take a single second, atone for your sins this morning. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It's free, 100%. Yes, First Kings TV. That game was terrible last night. Somehow my dumbass stayed up to finish it. But hey, we got some good stuff today. Leave a comment down below. Let us know where you're going for this one. What type of stacks stand out to you? I figure, I'll be honest. I don't usually like these type of shows when we have a Saturday and a Sunday slate because breaking them up is annoying. Jacob, if you could, can you just mark down when we start the Saturday and then when we start the Sunday so we can put some timestamps in after this? Awesome. Thank you. That'd be great, because then people can jump in whenever they're watching. But the Saturday slate, Greg, and the Sunday slate, I just want to get this out of the way, and then we can dive right into it because I know we got a bit of a late start. Surprise, surprise. Some of the injuries here are going to make things a little bit difficult because Gus Edwards is out. J.K. Dobbins might play. I don't think James Conner plays now that Arizona's eliminated from playoff contention, although they may just try and play spoiler here against the Rams. Because remember, guys, the Rams need to lose for the Seahawks. That's all that matters. There's some spots, though. There's some spots. And then I'm sure you've looked. The injury reports right now for Sunday, it's a sea of red next to these names.
Yeah, and there are a ton of games that don't matter. It's a side effect of the season being one game longer. You just have a lot of playoff spots that get locked up earlier. So there are going to be a ton of games this week and next week that don't matter. I also think this introduces some additional betting elements to some of these games. Something that I played around with during the Ravens-Texans game is you get to a point where the game doesn't matter for the Texans and they're losing by a lot. I think it makes a lot of sense to do same-game parlays in blowout sort of games around halftime and just take the unders on teams that don't have anything to play for. And then you hope they rest their starters, and you're basically taking like a 10 to 15 to 1 bet on starter sitting at the end of the game.
All right, so for what it's worth, I think there are very unique situations where you can do that. But I think and I'm not talking about you. I think a lot of times people assume that it's going to happen a lot more than it is. And what I mean by that is it's week 17. Oftentimes the teams have been out of it for a while now, are just going to play their starters. And then other teams, like I look at the San Francisco 49ers. and I go, this is a team that had real Super Bowl aspirations, right? They were in the Super Bowl last year. This is the team coming off of a Super Bowl loss. And was that the overtime one? Was that the overtime Super Bowl?
I don't remember.
Me neither. They were in the Super Bowl last year, right?
Last year it was 49ers Chiefs.
40. Yeah, right. And I think I don't know. Either way, Jacob said, yeah, it was overtime. So like they were right there. And now they've had a horrible season. I know there's some people out there going, and maybe this is true. They might want to play spoiler this week, going into a game against Detroit. I wonder with a team that cared as much as they did. And I'm just using this as a singular example because it's not on the slate. Like, is that a team that actually cares about playing spoiler, or are they just saying we screwed it? The injuries and everything, our season's over. So I think it's a very fine line you have to walk if you're looking for those spots.
Yeah. So to me, the ones that I'm looking for, I hit one on the Texans the other day. It's a team that these games are not meaningful for them, but they have other meaningful games coming up this season, like a team like the Texans, where it's like, hey, they're down. And I know somebody had asked me, like, why was the Joe Mixon rushing prop so low? It's like, why would he be expected to get carries in the fourth quarter at that point? So stuff like that, where Joe Mixon, I think, had 18 rushing yards going into the fourth quarter, and his live rushing prop was 28.5. It's like, how many rushing attempts are they realistically going to be giving Joe Mixon in the fourth quarter of a 31-3 game?
For sure. Yeah. The Texans haven't had anything to play for since week 15. They've had nothing to play for since week 15. So there are spots out there. What's crazy to me is that Derek Carr, and by the way, not just bullshitting here, trying to set the table for some of these games, because as Greg pointed out, some of these week 17 games are basically just a preview of week 18. The Saints Raiders, now Chris Olave might play this week.
I find that so unlikely, but
why would he be fully practicing? And why would he have been activated?
Yeah. So I think that there's a chance he could play, obviously, just based on that. But it seems so bizarre to me. What would be the point of him playing? I know. Especially like Spencer Rattler is the quarterback or something.
It doesn't make any sense, but there's a lot of injuries. Just looking through these slates real quick. I'm going to lay it out. You tell me if there's anything that stands out. Then we'll jump into the Sims. We'll hit Saturday first. Only 3 games. Be mindful of injuries as we do this. Chargers and Patriots. Okay, so this is a spot where I think obviously the Chargers have a lot to play for. Patriots don't. But I don't see them doing anything different. There's a team that would love to gain some momentum. They're coming off a competitive spot. I think they get smoked here. But coming off a competitive spot against Buffalo, I see nothing different there. Denver, big game. I've been saying this from the jump. Cincinnati's going to ride this out. So I expect everyone, including T. Higgins, to play. If they beat Denver and Denver loses in week 18 against Kansas City, unlikely because they probably sit their starters, there might be something there, even though as highly unlikely as it is. And then Rams need a win here. Rams win essentially locks it up. And Arizona has nothing to play for. So what do you make? Any spots that stand out here?
So in terms of games that stand out, probably just Cardinals, Rams, because of what you had said before. I do think the Cardinals are going to at least want to play spoiler in this game and try to show up and at least play hard for the win. Obviously, Broncos, Bengals, that game is going to be one that has massive implications here. Patriots, as none of these spots are ones where I think we're going to see teams sit players, because you got a team like the Patriots and the Cardinals. These are the 2 teams that really have nothing going on for this week. But with that said, Patriots, they want to develop Drake May, and the Cardinals, considering it's a divisional rivalry game, I still think that they are going to want to be going all out to try to win.
Yep, 100%. All right, so let's take a look at Saturday. What do you say?
Let's do it.
We do still have Gus Edwards in, so that'll change things. But also, I don't really think it matters, Greg, because we don't know if J.K. Dobbins is going to play anyway. So the whole backfield here is a mess regardless,
Yeah, we definitely just need more information before we could really make any kind of determinations. We're going to be saying that a lot next week as well, looking ahead to week 18, where there's going to be a ton of players who are questionable. But yeah, it's really hard to know what to make of that right now.
Who would have thought that in week 17, I bet if Jacob goes to running back right now, that Michael Carter is our highest exposed running back. Yeah. Who would have thought? Now, this is obviously us assuming that James Conner is out. I assume Tom ran this. I'm in 100% agreement with him. I would not expect with a banged up knee for James Conner to play in a meaningless game. So to me, I like the fact that we have Michael Carter in right now. Now, I don't know what other sites are doing, but I like that we have Michael Carter in.
Yeah, and if you look at his price tag, $4,100, assuming this ends up being the situation, he would be really hard to get away from. And if you look at our current ownership projection, while he is clearly popular, we've still got him as the third most popular running back on the slate. Chase Brown and Kyron Williams are still pulling more ownership.
Oh, wait, did we pull Gus Edwards out?
No, but he's not showing up in that many lineups.
Okay, good. That's Sunday. That's Sunday.
No, Gus Edwards is Saturday.
Oh yeah, dude, I was thinking Baltimore for a second. That's crazy.
Yeah, I've done that with a handful of players that change teams. It's really just a symptom of getting old. Like my dad still calls them the San Diego Chargers, and I don't think that's ever going to change at this point.
I've done that a few times myself, but yeah, I think the Michael Carter thing's pretty evident, pretty obvious. If you look at the type of builds that we have too, let me go full screen here. First King said Dobbins is out. No, we know Gus is out. I'm saying that the projections didn't have him out yet. Where do you see that Dobbins is confirmed out?
I assume you're asking First Kings TV.
Yeah, anybody. I haven't seen that anywhere. I've seen that he's questionable and could be activated. Actually, that's true. J.K. Dobbins is not officially out. Why don't I just listen to myself? All right. So what do you make? This is always my favorite question to ask you. Two of them, and especially for a 3-game slate. Mm-hmm. What do you make of the fact that on a 3-gamer, normally afternoon slates, other 3-gamers, Thanksgiving, you get a few of them every year. And if you're playing afternoon slates, you get a ton of these 3-game to 4-game slates every year. A lot of times you see the QB +3. Not a ton of that up top for this one.
Yeah. So looking at these lineups, we have, all right. Yeah. QB +2. Here's one QB +3, and it's a Bo Nix lineup, who's probably one of my least favorite QBs to make a QB +3 stacks of. I think probably a main reason for this is the quarterbacks we have on actually, no, never mind. I was going to say that we have a lot of cheaper quarterbacks who are not necessarily heavy throwing QBs that we would want to be making triple stacks of, but like we've got Justin Herbert, we've got Matt Stafford. So I couldn't tell you the exact reason why. I'm not dying to make triple stacks with Kyler Murray or Drake May or anything like that. I guess just the way the salary is, there's enough cheap guys where you don't have to force in double and triple stacks. Well, still a lot of double stacks, but maybe not as many triple stacks necessary to create upside. Michael Carter probably plays a large part of that, actually, as I think more about it. At him at $4,100, that kind of upside, you're getting points per dollar, probably makes it so that you don't need the triple stacks as much to create the ceiling.
It's a good point. A lot of these teams are just not conducive to triple stacking. If you, Jacob, go to exposures and then toggle to stack exposures, my guess is that Kyler Murray's the highest exposed, for triple stacks. And that is because of Michael Carter. Right?
Yeah, so you got Kyler Murray, Stafford, which are mostly double and triple stacks. That makes sense. Joe Burrow, it's just kind of hard to make triple stacks due to pricing reasons with Joe Burrow, because it's what are you going to do? You're going to put him with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and then also Chase Brown or something like that. It's just hard from a salary perspective. Bo Nix, I'm not super enamored making triple stacks of him. Same with Drake May. And then Justin Herbert, it's kind of hard to nail down who the primary pass catchers are for Justin Herbert. So, yeah, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. Those Murray lineups are going to have Michael Carter in them for sure. At least a ton of them. Real quick, go back to lineups, Jacob. I just want to see what the flex spots look like. Are we going Okay. Good amount of 2 tight end. Old Stone Smart back in the mix, Greg.
Oh, yeah. He has been we've had what, like three weeks now where he's kind of mattered. He's 3,400 now, so it's not like he shows up in a ton of lineups or anything like that, but he's a viable option for the slate. It's kind of hard for me to differentiate between the cheaper tight ends, Henry, Jaceki, Stone Smart, pretty similar looking options.
Also, Hayden Hurst is questionable again for this one. And he only played 12% of snaps last week. Stone Smart played 60. So I understand it. I get it. The guy's cheap. Let's go position by position here. I'm actually pretty excited to see how this looks. We can toggle off stack exposures, go to quarterbacks first, and see where we're at on Burrow. Where are we at? Okay, so we're pretty flat.
Very flat. I mean, the only quarterback we don't have that much of is Kyler Murray, and he was also the only, or not the only, but the quarterback we were most prominently getting triple stacks of. But yeah, other than Kyler Murray, we've got double-digit exposure to all of the quarterbacks. Kyler Murray is also fairly popular.
That's a good point, though. I mean, it looks like we would have one lineup then without one Kyler. So it looks like, what do we have, 8%? So it looks like basically all of the Kyler we have is just triple stacks.
Yeah, there was one double stack, the rest triple stacks, no singles, no naked lineups.
Because of Carter. Bo Nix against Cincinnati, clearly a good matchup. My guess is the total in that game sitting at like one of the highest you're ever going to get for a Broncos game, I'll tell you that much. Probably around 50. 49.5. Yep. 48 for Cardinals Rams. Are these, sorry to make you do a ton of work here, Jacob, but if you go to lineups one more time and just filter by Stafford lineups, like, do you think it's mostly Kyren Puka and not Kyren Kupp?
Let me think. All right, so the pricing here, Kyren is $7,500, Puka Nacua is $8K, and Cooper Kupp is $6,500. I know Kupp, also Nakua's super. Yeah, it's probably mostly Puka and Kyren Williams. It is, I assume, pretty hard to build lineups that have Nacua, Kupp, and Kyren. And there aren't that many other players from the Rams that I think we'd be getting too much of.
Here's one right here. This is why I love doing this show, because we can see what type of builds pop up. 143% SIM ROI. If you look at the fifth one down, Greg, Stafford, Kyren, Javonte, he is in a good spot. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Kayshon Boutte, Trey McBride, Michael Carter, and Patriots. That's actually not a bad lineup at all.
No, there's not that many opportunity costs there because, Boutte's been not great this year from a fantasy perspective, but on a 3-game slate, punting a wide receiver, it's not the end of the world if he's in a lineup. And then we got Michael Carter to save salary with, and I don't think anybody's going to take issue with Michael Carter being in lineups, assuming that James Conner's out.
Yeah, and let's not bury the lead here either. Cooper Kupp, his price has come down significantly. $6,500, by far the cheapest he's been all year, not even close.
Yeah, he has had a couple of pretty shitty games in a row here. And you and I both speculated, primarily myself, but I was speculated that there would kind of be a squeaky wheel thing going on last week because of the fact that in the game against the 49ers, he had 0 catches, which I can't remember the last time Cooper Kupp had a game with 0 catches. So I thought it stood to reason that they were going to try to make sure to have him more involved in the game plan. It just wasn't the case. Only targeted 3 times, 24 receiving yards last week. So out of nowhere, Cooper Kupp is just kind of evaporated from the offense. I can't imagine that holds up, but that's been the case the last couple of games.
Yeah, I co-signed that take. I thought it was a good pick. Plus, the other thing, though, the offense just struggled to get anything going. That was like an 18-9 game. That was a completely devoid of offense. Jacob, one more thing. Let's go to Kyler Murray. Filter. So remove Stafford, go to Kyler Murray. I'm just curious, Greg, to see what some of these +3s look like, right? I mean, let's see the top one. See, Edwards is in there, so forget about that because that'll change. Kyler, Javonte, Carter, Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua. Man, that is a sick looking lineup. That is a awesome looking lineup. So the +3 is Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, and Michael Carter, but you have Javonte, Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, and wow, that's a beautiful lineup.
I'm pretty uncomfortable with Javonte Williams. We'll talk more about when we get to running back. It's so hard to know what to make of the workload in the backfield for the Broncos.
I'm uncomfortable with it too, but I can't imagine he's going to be that popular. And now for 5 straight weeks, the guy's averaging over 50% of snaps. He's not a legit bell cow, but he's $5,400 in a very good matchup. I'm uncomfortable with it without question. Screw it. Let's go to running back exposures. Just make sure to get out of that filter. And let's see what running back exposures look like here. So you'd be uncomfortable with 36% Javonte?
If he's actually 11% owned, then I wouldn't have an issue being overweight to the field to him. I don't want to have nearly, more than a third of my lineups have Javonte Williams in them, where, you look at the targets were ridiculous last week. That's nice, but he hasn't had more than 10 rushing attempts in a game since November 3rd.
Do you agree that Michael Carter, assuming James Conner's out, and Kyren Williams are indisputably the best 2 running backs on this slate?
Yeah, and Chase Brown in the next tier before we get to just, punts that we would be okay with putting into lineups. But Michael Carter, Kyren Williams, tier 1 is a pay up, 1 is a value option, then Chase Brown. And Chase Brown, obviously, also a really strong option. I would just, if I'm playing a chalky spend up, I slightly prefer Kyren Williams. Then it's kind of everybody else grouped together.
Yeah, I was going to mention Ramondre, just because this Chargers defense is falling apart. They really are. Like this Chargers defense, they stood up a bit late in the second half against the Broncos, but when they face, the problem is they're not facing a good opponent. That's the problem. And Antonio Gibson got a lot of work last time. 5,200 though, I'd still rather go to Javonte Williams over Antonio Gibson. I don't see myself getting to like Audric Estime at 5K, Greg. That's not even cheap. Like, Estime should be 4,300. I suppose all right, here's a fun one. What if J.K. Dobbins remains out alongside Gus Edwards? Is Kamani Vidal, does he become a priority?
Not a priority, but comparable to somebody like, I'd say this actually, a little bit more of a priority than Javonte Williams for me.
I would put him over Javonte.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a good matchup, hopefully positive game script in that spot as well.
Yeah. So right now, also, I think the Chargers would probably want to give Vidal a little bit more work. It's a game they shouldn't have too much issues winning. And then I think they get an idea of how much they really want to use Vidal in the postseason. We haven't really seen him run the football all that much. I mean, he hasn't played a ton, but we've seen him more as a pass catcher than an actual runner.
If Dobbins and Edwards are healthy going into the postseason, my guess is Vidal doesn't touch the ball.
Probably not, unless they dust him off for the next couple of weeks and he looks really good.
Right. He just hasn't looked good yet all season. So we'll see. What about wide receiver? My first thing I was looking at, Greg, was to see what Cooper Kupp's exposure was. And 15%, that seems okay. Where's our value coming from?
Running back with Michael Carter. It's not coming to wide receiver because looking at the wideouts here, all of our top rostered wide receivers are over 6K. The only cheap one we get a decent amount of is Marvin Harrison at $5,200. He's in 26% of lineups. It's not even a ton, especially not for a 3-game slate. So it looks like we're spending up at wide receiver.
I love Harrison at 52. I know it hasn't been good for him recently, but that's cheap. Ladd McConkey at 6,600. I mean, very simply, just how do you get away from that?
It's pretty tough. Same with Ladd McConkey, T. Higgins. There are a lot of good wide receivers for this slate. It's just not the cheap ones.
Right. I wonder if Patrick Surtain. Because a lot of the corners don't shadow anymore. He has one of the highest shadow rates in the league. Is this going to be a Surtain Chase matchup? Or is it just one of these spots where it's like, look, Chase and Higgins are both great, so don't shadow. Just line up on one side. That'd be interesting. If it's Surtain versus Chase is good enough to where he can still have a phenomenal game, but Higgins would look even better to me.
It's hard to know. Anything we say would just be, speculative guessing. Maybe the team says something before the game, but they're probably not going to.
Yeah, or we have history of this. We'll see. I'll look it up while we talk, but yeah, you're right. Not a lot down there. Devon Vele, Kayshon Boutte, Marvin Mims, these type of guys, but these are all just kind of a little bit of these guys getting mixed in. My guess too would be like Vele's mostly in Bo Nix stacks. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who else would even show up as a pass catcher, because it's not going to be a tight end. Vele there at 17%. Obviously, Courtland Sutton at 6,300. We probably have a good amount of Javonte Williams in some of those stacks too. We did get 11 targets last week.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm not opposed to Javonte Williams at all. Plus, this is kind of the prototypical game where you would want to get Javonte Williams involved in the passing game, because the Bengals offense is good, right? Like, this Bengals offense is very good. Assuming Higgins is out there, you've got a couple juggernaut wide receivers with, I've said it all year, this guy would be the MVP in my opinion had the Bengals been winning games consistently, but the defense let him down. If this evolves into a shootout, might just be a big Javonte Williams game. I'm not getting off of him. I'm fine with it. Let's take a look at tight ends, then we'll go to the Sunday slate.
Kyler Murray, dirty, filthy liar, promised that Trey McBride was going to score a touchdown last week.
Yeah, he did.
Score a touchdown last week.
Yeah, he did. He targeted him once in the end zone, and it sailed 100 feet over his head. It wasn't even close. He's too short. That's the problem with Kyler Murray. How do you expect a 4'7" quarterback to throw over the line from the 5-yard line?
He's able to throw to other pass catchers, just not Trey McBride.
Right, but he's got to hit them in motion, or he's got to hit them while they're moving in stride. You can't just have a guy sitting in the back of the end zone. Kyler he'll never see him. He'll never see him. He'll just bang it off the chest of the defensive lineman.
It's just been the problem the whole time. Trey McBride can't catch touchdowns because Kyler Murray's short and can't throw over the middle.
Yeah, he's in the end zone. He's going over here. But I like McBride this week anyway. He had a letdown game last time out, but this guy has just been peppered with targets. He's one of the best tight ends in the league right now. He's one of the most heavy volume tight ends in the league. Again, last week to me is more of an exception than the rule, because prior to that, he had 4 straight games with double-digit targets.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at his production, despite the lack of touchdowns, it's not like these other games are terrible fantasy games where, 9 catches for 87 yards, 7 catches for 70 yards, 12 catches for 96 yards, 12 catches for 113 yards. These are still good DFS games, even though that we don't have the touchdowns there. By the way, he actually does have, this doesn't really get talked about all that much. He does have 1 touchdown this year. Trey McBride.
Yeah, it was on a fumble recovery in the end zone, and Ben had it in a round robin touchdown parlay.
Yeah. So it counted as a rushing touchdown, which I also think is kind of weird. Why would that count as a rushing touchdown, not just a fumble recovery touchdown? But that said, there's that 1 touchdown that Trey McBride actually has scored this year, just no receiving touchdowns.
It's pretty crazy. It's been bad. It has been bad. Are you sure they counted it as the rushing? You're right, they did. That's so dumb. That's stupid. Anything else? I want to talk about the Sunday slate while we're here.
Yeah, let's check out the Sunday slate. Tomorrow 3-gamer, and we're still missing some news. So keep an update on what ends up breaking, and then our data will be updated as more news comes out.
Did we Do we still have the Sims Max deal going? Get it through the Super Bowl with the promo?
Not that one, but we do have our link join offer.
All right. Yeah. If you guys haven't signed up, you see the Sims, the single lineup sim. I saw someone earlier in chat was mentioning that it's harder these days to, win as a single lineup player, only playing a couple lineups. Yeah, it's tough. That's why we built the single lineup sim for you guys, specifically for the people who still want to hand build, but want to actually have a competitive edge and not just, be blindly throwing lineups out there. So whether it's the single lineup sim that Greg and I demonstrate every week, we didn't do it on Wednesday because it was Christmas, but Matt and I build lineups out on it on every strategy show for Live Before Lock. Just a phenomenal tool, or the sims that we're using today, or ownership, player projections, the boom bust tool, the all important top stack tool. You want to just build better lineups, put yourself in a position to make it happen. And did I mention do nothing to get it? $100 value core package. All you have to do, go to the link in the description. Hey, Jacob, if you could pull that one up instead of this, it'd be great. If not, don't worry about it. The first link in the second link in the description, join any sportsbook, gets the Stokastic Sims free. Click that. Once you go there, it'll take you to a page where all you have to do is click claim offer on any of these sports books. Or, and I get this question all the time, if you're in non-legal betting states, right? If you're in states that don't have legal sports betting, all of the pick'em sites are included. Better, Underdog, Prize Picks, Vivid Picks, any of those. Click claim offer because we have to know it's you. Click claim offer. Once you sign up through that link, simply place a bet on whatever you want. Let's say you wanted the tools by tonight, right? I'm not recommending you do this, but if you're like, oh, there's nothing on but Russian ping pong. All right, I'll put a $5 bet on Russian ping pong. That should be a fun sweat. Some of these sites even let you watch it. The moment that bet settles, all you have to do is email us with your screenshot of your first settled bet and a screenshot of your welcome email. Email us at support@stokastic.com, and you've got the month for free. $100 value, includes the single lineup sim, the actual sims that we're talking about that we're using today, everything for NFL. And let's say you're like, you know what? Screw it. I'll sign up on 3 books. I'll sign up on Bet365. I'll get my $150 in bonus bets. I'll sign up on FanDuel. I'm not there yet. Oddly enough, I'll get $200 in bonus bets, and I'll sign up on Caesars. Get your bonus bets. It's usually a $5 or $10 minimum deposit on all of them. Show us all the screenshots of what you had to do. So that'd be 6 in total. Email them to us. And with that, you have 3 months. So you'd get NBA, NFL. You could get the college football with the bowl games approaching. Get the college football sims. The best deal out there, Greg. I don't know how long we'll have it, but as long as we do, I suggest you take advantage if you wanted to jump in on the tools.
Absolutely. And football, even though that's kind of starting to wind down a little bit here, I think Lofty had mentioned this, but don't forget, you could sign up for 1 month of football, a month of NBA, and you could pick different sports to sign up for if you sign up for multiple books.
Yeah, man. Check and shout us out. Say what's up in the Discord. Let us know you're there. Discord comes with it. If you ever have questions, hit Greg or myself up on Twitter. Our DMs are open. We try to be available, All right, here we go. Anyway, first link in the description, or second link, in the description. Let's look at Sunday. Only 8 games. How about that, man? This is the only 8 gamer we have all season, by the way.
I like it. I really like these size slates. Talking about the Sunday one, not the Saturday one. 3 games for NFL, definitely preferable to me than 2 games. With it said, 8-game slate for a Sunday. I love that. I think it's a really fun size slate where, it really boils down the options you have to choose from. Where a lot of times on slates that are like 11, 12 games, I could find it a little bit overwhelming, where it's like I have so many players I want to roster and just not possible to get to all of them.
Yeah, 8 games is fun. You're right. I can't stand the 13 game. Sunday week 18 is going to be tough.
Yes, that will be for multiple reasons. That's a tough week.
You know what I like to do? I actually, on those, this is just a personal preference. I kind of enjoy just doing the early slate and then like early only and then afternoon only. And I basically have 2 full main slates.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one way to approach that week.
15 games is tough, man. It's really tough. All right. We haven't talked a lot about Sunday slate at all. You and I haven't talked about it at all. And the first look show with Greg and Matt was the Christmas games. So little different here. Let's how do you want to start this one off for Sunday? Because we haven't looked at much throughout the week.
Yeah, so for Sunday, I think just kind of the normal sort of deal here. We could look at the top projected lineups, which I'm interested to see are a lot of New Orleans stacks. 3 of our top 4 lineups. Spencer Rattler Rattler hasn't been confirmed as the starter, just the assumed starter, correct?
No, he hasn't. And also, I will flat out boost him negative boost on Rattler if I end up getting a lot of him.
Yeah, I don't know if he's showing up in a lot of lineups as much as just the top ones.
Right.
Here, I know that he's projected for very, very low ownership. It's a good matchup against the Raiders. Rattler's a good arm. I don't think he's looked completely terrible when he's been at quarterback for the Saints. It'll be interesting to see who's out there with him. We don't know if Chris Olave is going to play. You'd mentioned that before. We got a lot of moving parts for the Saints offense.
Yeah. We also had a question real quick from Einsteinium. Are you going to have any PGA Sims offers? I'm sure we will, probably around the bigger tournaments.
Yeah, so we don't have anything planned for PGA. I'll guarantee that we'll do something for the Masters, but in the short term, I'll say a TBD.
All right. You know what, Greg? I have to see what the quarterback exposure looks like because I'm seeing so much Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau. Okay, good. You were right. That makes me more comfortable. 4%. Go to tight end, Jacob. Okay, so yeah, the Juwan Johnson. There's no way that holds. Just simply no way that holds. I'd feel pretty comfortable flat out guaranteeing that you're not going to have 60% Juwan Johnson by the time this locks, Greg.
No, for sure not. With that said, I think he's a perfectly viable tight end at $3,500.
Good matchup.
But yeah, not somebody who'll be in more than half my lineups. I'm not going to be playing Spencer Rattler lineups with Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson either.
Yeah. I also don't want to fully overreact, though, to what we saw on Monday night. And I think a lot of people will do that because you're going up against a good Packers team at Lambeau in the cold, right? Like that is very different than a home matchup in the Dome against the Las Vegas Raiders. So I think you'd agree. It's at least fair for us to view these, at the very least, view them through a different lens coming into this week.
Yeah, and also other tight ends. TJ Hawkinson is still relatively cheap, and he's been more involved in the offense now that he doesn't have any kind of restrictions. Brock Bowers, yeah, I mean, you could. It's funny. You look at our top tight ends here, and of the top, was it 7, 8 on the screen? 3 of them are from the New Orleans Raiders game. We got Johnson, Brock Bowers, and Foster Moreau. Although I don't imagine I'm going to play Foster Moreau lineups.
Okay, I will throw this out there though. Take us off full screen because I want to see Greg's reaction to this.
Oh boy,
it's nothing crazy, but it's just I'm coming around a little bit here.
Mac Jones.
No. If Chris Olave plays, we're probably getting to some Spencer. Chris Olave's $5,200.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if Chris Olave plays with no restrictions, $5,200 is an insane price point.
Against the Raiders. $5,200 on Chris Olave is it's asinine. And he's not coming back from, sure, he could just get concussed in the first quarter, but he's not coming back from a lower body. If they decide that Chris Olave plays and he's a full go, I don't see why anything would change. There's nobody else on that football team. Alvin Kamara hasn't practiced. I don't envision him playing. You bite the bullet on that one. Even if you one-off Olave, fine. But I feel like he's going to be such a popular one-off that I would maybe just consider, getting 5-7% Rattler with some Olave and Juwan Johnson lineups or something like that, or MVS if he plays.
Yeah, my intuition is still that Chris Olave does not end up playing, but we'll see.
All I'm saying is it's weird that they would activate him from the IR and he would get full practices.
We saw the Jets also say with Breece Hall a couple weeks ago that he was going to play the rest of the season. They ruled him out the next day. You never know.
It's still weird. I think he plays.
Do you think he plays with no restrictions and just regular workload?
No, that's what worries me. I mean, they'd be so dumb to play him. Like, we're on the same page. I just don't. Maybe they just want him practicing. I don't know. Maybe they just, want him practicing, get him going, and then he doesn't play. We'll see. Whatever. Just keep that in mind, guys, that will look very interesting if Chris Olave plays. But to your point, we don't know if he'll be a full go. It's very possible he isn't, and that would be gross. But if he is, it's one of the best values you'll get all season, no matter who the quarterback is. It's a great matchup.
Yeah.
But I have some reservations there as well.
Yeah, still some hurdles to clear. Obviously, we have to find out if he's in or not. And then even if he is he going to be in any kind of pitch count?
Right.
Like, I still think it's very unrealistic that all those things come together. He plays and he's not limited in any kind of way.
I agree. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's active. Let me put it to you that way.
Could happen.
Go to quarterback, Jacob. Let's see what we got here. And then we'll look at some of these builds after we look through exposures. And if you guys have any questions about this run, about lineups, about the Sims in general, hit us up. We're always monitoring chat here. All right, so quarterbacks. Man, so Anthony Richardson's questionable. They said they're optimistic about his chances to play. So whatever. Aiden O'Connell. God, this is gross. I'll tell you right now. To me, $6,900 Baker. I think the Tampa Bay Bucks are going to come in and beat the living shit out of the Carolina Panthers. This is just my opinion, but the Panthers take the Bucks to overtime a few weeks ago, right? Then the Panthers get their dicks kicked in against Dallas. You could see it coming from a mile away. They were favored for the first time in like 35 games. And then they come in, again, you could see the Panthers have actually been very predictable lately, very predictable. Then they come in and they beat the Arizona Cardinals, right? A floundering Cardinals team. Now, the Bucks, who are coming off a huge loss to the Cowboys, have a home matchup against the Carolina Panthers. All I'm saying, this sets up as a spot for the Bucks to assert true dominance as they race for this NFC South title. And I think you could see an explosive performance from this offense this week.
Yeah, and we're getting to a good amount of it in the Sims, it looks like here too. I mean, Baker Mayfield, he's our third most rostered quarterback. Not too much different from the field. He is projected to have the most ownership at the position. So we're right around the field, 13% ownership. He's in 11% of our lineups. You've also got Mike Evans as a pretty clear stacking partner with Baker Mayfield. Then beyond Mike Evans, I mean, you can go to like Jalen McMillan if you're looking to save salary. I'm sure the Sims are giving us some Bucky Irving and Baker Mayfield lineups. I would say probably just the biggest question to me is, I agree. I like Baker Mayfield. I like the Bucs offense. But who are you going to stack Baker with outside of Mike Evans?
I guess it depends on whether or not Cade Otton plays. It gets a little bit tough at the running back position for sure. By the way, Mike Evans needs, how many does he have? He needs 182 yards over 2 games to get 1,000 yards. That's a big deal. Normally, I wouldn't care about this stuff. I think that's actually a big deal for Mike Evans. He's never not had 1,000-yard season. Jalen McMillan. $4,600 Jalen McMillan has been involved. He's been good. He's been targeted in the end zone. Scored in 3 straight games, 4 over his last 3. I mentioned that because they're actually looking to him there. So I would not be opposed to getting Jalen McMillan in those lineups whatsoever. Don't even hate a single stack. But Jalen McMillan has played 80% of snaps last game alongside Mike Evans. That's interesting. Sterling Shepard is questionable. It could just be these 2 guys that get all of the work. Payne Durham, that's disgusting if Cade Otton doesn't play. But Payne Durham's $2,900. He would be a clear option there without question. He played 93% of snaps last week, was targeted 7 times. Not exactly high value targets, Greg, but 7 targets, 93% of snaps for a guy at 2,900. I don't think it's tough to stack Tampa Bay alongside Mike Evans at all.
And I'm pretty confident Cade Otton isn't going to play this week.
He hasn't practiced, right?
Not only is he not practiced, but the offensive coordinator was talking about Durham and said that he's most likely going to be the guy moving forward, which that to me very much indicates that they are expecting Cade Otton not just to be out this week, but multiple weeks.
With that in mind, how much different really is Payne Durham than Cade Otton when you look at performance now that Mike Evans returned? Played the same amount of snaps that Otton's played, and he's probably going to see the same fluctuation in targets as Cade Otton. I don't think all that much is going to change. So, yeah, I kind of like Tampa Bay this week.
Yeah, I think that the Tampa Bay offense makes a whole lot of sense. And another thing, too, that is kind of nice about it, too, where we're trying to figure out, like, all right, who do we want to stack Baker Mayfield with outside of Mike Evans and maybe Bucky Irving in some of those lineups as well? With Bucky Irving being healthy now, I think we have a pretty good idea of this is going to be a condensed offense. It's not as condensed as, say, like a Cincinnati Bengals or anything like that. But if there's a big game by the Buccaneers offense, you could be pretty confident that Mike Evans and Bucky Irving are involved in some sort of way. And then, maybe there's Durham as a cheap tight end. Maybe Jalen McMillan ends up standing out as a cheaper wide receiver. Or maybe we just have single stacks with Baker Mayfield.
I'd be fine with any of it. Although, actually, go to stack exposure. I want to. Are we getting the Baker 2s and 3s? Because we have a decent amount of them. Go to stack exposure and let's see Baker. Look at that. It's got to be Payne Durham. It has to be.
Yeah, try to isolate some of those lineups, Jacob. I think it's going to be McMillan, Bucky Irving, and Mike Evans. Well, first one there's Rachaad White.
There's a Payne Durham, like 8 down, 10 down.
All right. So first one is White, Evans, and McMillan. The second one, Bucky Irving, Evans, and McMillan. Here, Bucky Irving, Evans, McMillan. It's mostly Irving, Evans, and McMillan.
There's a bunch of Durhams down there though with the +3s. Can you go to tight end exposure? No, actually keep the Baker one up. It's okay. This will tell us how many of this tool's great.
Yeah, we only have 1% of lineups with Payne Durham.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
So 2 out of 150 lineups have Payne Durham.
That's crazy to me. That's going to change though. I don't really think Payne Durham is in a worse spot. So, like, comparing Payne Durham and Juwan Johnson this week, how different really are they?
Definitely better quarterback play for Payne Durham. Got 7 targets last week. I'm with you. I am. I'm getting into Payne Durham, not as somebody I want to have in like 30% of lineups, but I could see myself getting like 15% to Payne Durham.
Yeah, for sure. This isn't either of us dying on the Payne Durham hill. I'm just saying there's ways to stack Tampa and get some cheap tight end exposure. What do you want to look at next?
Yeah, so go back to QBs again, Jacob. I just wanted to see if there was any other quarterbacks. Richardson, McConnell, Mayfield, Darnold. Yeah, nothing else seems way out of line. Aiden O'Connell, good matchup, super, super cheap. So let's look at the running backs.
Well, wait, real quick. Are there any quarterbacks that we think we should be getting more to that we aren't getting any of right now? That's more interesting to me than anything else. Like, you have Josh Allen on the slate. We're not getting to any Josh Allen. Jalen Hurts is not going to play. So then, Josh Allen is $1,700 or $1,600 more expensive than the next closest quarterback.
Also, I'm not interested in Josh Allen this week. He played terribly against the Patriots last week. He's really banged up right now, too. It got reported that he has a broken left hand, his non-throwing hand before last week. He banged up his throwing hand during the game. It's going to be hard for me to want to pay up for Josh Allen.
I get it. Interesting spot, though, because if they win this game, they do lock up the 2 seed, and then you can give these guys some rest in week 18. But yeah. I'm with you. $8,500 here is a very tough ask. Plus, who do you stack him with?
I guess Shakur, but it's hard to. Dalton Kincaid, he's been garbage this year. Amari Cooper, super hard to nail down his production. There actually are really good skill position players around Josh Allen. It just, the ball gets so spread out there in Buffalo.
I think Mason Rudolph is viable here. This guy's just going to chuck it. Like, he got picked off 3 times last week in Indy, but still threw 2 touchdowns. Mason Rudolph at 5K, as gross as it is, I understand why we'd be getting to some of him. This is probably a absurdly cheap stack.
Yeah, Mason Rudolph, and what's they like 5,600?
And Chigakonkwo's 3,600 coming off back-to-back. How about this? Don't look now. Chigakonkwo, because I've loved this guy since he came into the league, and he's disappointed me immensely. Him and Jelani Woods, except Jelani Woods is never healthy. Chigakonkwo, Greg, back-to-back double-digit target games. Back-to-back 8+ reception games. Very interesting at 3,600 against a bad Jacksonville secondary.
Mason Rudolph might just like throwing to his tight ends. You remember back in the day when he was the quarterback of the Steelers, and there was the memes of him with the dented helmet and whatnot after the altercation with Myles Garrett. Pat Freiermuth was a really, really legitimate fantasy tight end then. It's not because Mason Rudolph was great. He just threw the ball to the tight end a lot. I think we could be seeing a lot of the same here. I agree.
That's a good point. I think Chig looks pretty. Jacob, do we have a decent amount of Chig? I hope so. 5%. Again, I think all this gets shuffled around once that Juwan Johnson exposure comes down. But I like Chigakonkwo this week. All right, what did you say? Running backs or wide receivers? What did you look at?
Let's look at the running backs.
Sure. That is not what I expected to see at all. I haven't run any sims yet for this slate, so this is fresh to me. I did not expect Devon Achane to be 65%. Wow.
Let's see. What was his workload is not dipping at all. 17 carries and 7 targets last week. You're getting around the same thing as of late from Achane. You're getting these games with 20-ish touches, with about a third of them coming through the passing game. It's a lot of volume.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah, I've loved Devon Achane all year, no doubt about it. But I just wasn't necessarily expecting 65%. Against this Cleveland front's not bad, especially at home. That's a lot, but he's a good play. He's a good player. I like Barkley more though. It is fascinating to me though. If you look at Barkley in that first quarter before Hurts got hurt, he had 2 touchdowns and 100+ yards. Then they were able to bottle him up because that dual threat capability with Hurts and Barkley back there really opens things up. So whenever people are like, oh, it sucks having a rushing quarterback back there for the running back, it doesn't. It really doesn't. When you know that you've got to be covering multiple angles on every single snap, we saw it became way more one-dimensional, and Barkley couldn't get anything going. So I still like him this week. They're still big favorites, but that is one thing that worries me a little bit.
Any concern that they ease up on Barkley's workload a little bit, considering that there was obviously – Jalen Hurts gets hurt, super winnable game here against the Dallas Cowboys. Is this one of these scenarios where Eagles might be up by 10, 14 points in the fourth quarter and just like, let's give the ball to Kenneth Gainwell?
If that's the case, yeah, because they've done it before, but I'm not projecting. I don't feel comfortable projecting them to be up by 20 points in the fourth quarter. We'll see. Barkley had 29 carries last week. We have to keep in mind, like without Jalen Hurts, you're just going to need him more and more and more. He played 82% of snaps in that game. Monster number.
Yeah. Still live for the 1 seed as well. Very unlikely. Very, very unlikely, but still live for it.
Are they?
Yeah. Very, very unlikely, but it's possible.
How would they get the 1 seed?
Lions and Vikings tie.
Will you stop it, dude? Will you stop with this shit? Come on. Are you serious?
But the reality is
that actually how they would get it?
I think so. If they
it would have to be Vikings lose this week, Lions lose this week, and then they tie next week.
Yeah, I also don't know. I have to assume the strength of schedule is much more difficult for the Lions and Vikings, considering the division they play in versus
Definitely.
the division the Eagles play in. But the reality is this: as long as teams are live for any outcome, no matter how unlikely it is, they're going to play as if that outcome is, whether it's a 1% outcome or a 50% outcome or 90% outcome. I think NFL teams are approaching it the same way.
All right. There's one guy that if these were my exposures today, I already told you I'd bring Achane down. There's one guy that I would bring up dramatically, and I have a feeling you'd be able to guess this one.
Bringing down dramatically.
No, bringing up. I said I'd bring Achane down. I'd 65% is crazy. There's some great running backs on this slate. Right. There's one guy I would bring up dramatically.
Kendre Miller.
No, but I actually don't hate that.
Okay.
Jonathan Taylor.
Good matchup. Good matchup against that shitty Giants team, and he just had a gazillion rushing yards.
Yeah, and I know he'll be popular because he just came off a huge game against a much more difficult matchup in Tennessee, and he was cheaper at the time. However, Anthony Richardson is dealing with a back injury and a foot injury. So who knows if he's going to be running at the same clip. The Giants don't have Dexter Lawrence. This defense, this team in general is just terrible. Jonathan Taylor, to me, looks like, far and away one of the best plays on the entire slate.
Yeah. The only concern I'll have is what does the ownership actually end up being? Because he's projected for 16% ownership, but you always see that bounce from a guy who had a ceiling game the week before. So I wouldn't be stunned if Taylor ends up close to 30%.
I wouldn't either. I think he's going to be more popular than Achane. There's my hot take.
Could be. Could very well be the case.
Bucky Irving looks good. Aaron Jones is fine there. Good price point, $6,200. Anybody else?
Kind of interesting that we're getting Rachaad White exposure in addition to Bucky Irving. This to me is a much better game script for Bucky Irving than Rachaad White. Mm-hmm. Rachaad White generally, and it's not that we have a ton of Rachaad White. We've got 8% of him, but I was surprised it was even that much.
Same. Kendre Miller would be the other guy, 5,500. Where in a game, if they're not getting absolutely trashed, right, that would be okay with me for sure. Although Jordan Mims got a lot of work last game, I don't know how much of that was just blowout related, but I don't feel great about the fact that that guy played more snaps than anybody else in the backfield for the Saints.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Miller as the guy this week, and I'm willing to take shots on him at $5,500. Not to the point where I would have 40% of him or anything like that. But Kendre Miller, if we're talking about sub 6K running backs, he's my favorite one right now.
All right, let's look at wide receivers. Thielen. Oh, Evans is up there. Evans is our second highest exposed player.
Makes sense, just considering that we had a lot of Baker.
I'm all about it.
And then Thielen shows up in those lineups as a run back. Kind of surprised Chuba Hubbard wasn't showing up very much because he usually does rate out well in the Sims. But Adam Thielen as the run back in those lineups instead. A lot of players just correlate with other things we've looked at so far. So Adam Thielen, run back from all the Baker Mayfield lineups. We have Mike Evans also just stacked with Baker Mayfield. Michael Pittman makes sense because we were getting to a lot of Anthony Richardson. Jacoby Myers, same deal. Makes sense. We're getting to a lot of Aiden O'Connell. Calvin Ridley, Also, same deal. Makes sense. We're getting to a good amount of Mason Rudolph and then Malik Neighbors as a run back in some of those Anthony Richardson lineups. So kind of everything we have here correlates with what we've looked at.
Do you like Anthony Richardson this week?
I think we need a little bit more information on how healthy he is.
I don't disagree.
If he's a game time decision, then that would be a pretty big red flag to me. If we find out later today that he's good to go, the injury is probably less of a concern.
Michael Pittman's price point has fallen so far that's probably why we're getting 4,700 is absurdly cheap. Another thing just to keep in mind for those of you guys watching, live or after the fact, is Malik Neighbors deemed himself a game time decision. Yeah. There's just a lot of questionable players this week where there's going to be a lot of moving parts heading into Sunday for sure.
Zero reason for Neighbors to play. Like, there's actually negative reasons for Malik Neighbors to end up playing today. But this Giants team is absolutely moronic. They might just have him out there anyway. But I mean, this is a team clearly losing is more beneficial to them than winning. Like, what difference does it make if you go 2-15 or 3-14? Doesn't matter at all. And then it's got Malik Neighbors, who's been banged up a lot of the year. He's just getting left out to dry by whatever the terrible quarterback play is. It makes no sense to play Neighbors, but the Giants have insisted on playing him anyway.
He's 3 receptions and 31 yards shy of 100 receptions and 1,000 yards. My assumption is they get it for him as a rookie.
They shouldn't. Just let him rest up. He's also had a concussion at one point this year.
I don't think they should do it either, but I think they will. I think maybe they'll do what they did with Puka Nacua last year, right? Where you just play him, and then once he gets what he needed, he's out.
Could definitely be the case. I wonder actually what it might be a good one to look at. Let's say Neighbors sits this week and he plays next week. I would bet under his, like, let's say the reception line 6.5. I would bet the under and just assume that they take him out after he gets to the 3 receptions.
Bet over 30 and under 50. Do reverse correlation.
The problem with that is, it would make sense.
The problem is if he breaks a big one, sure. But if there was ever an opportunity to do that, I don't know what the odds would look like. I don't even know if you'd get enough value on something like that to begin with. But if you went over 30 and under 50 and the odds just skyrocket, I would be willing to give it a shot.
All right. Yeah, we'll see what that ends up. I'll keep that a mental note of it, and we'll look back at it next week. We still need so many things to happen. For
sure. I also like where your head is on this one. That would be a good spot to take the under if the books aren't baking it in. The books bake a lot of that stuff in anyway, but we'll see. McMillan, we have 15% too, so we are getting a good amount of Tampa. I think the New Orleans exposure changes for sure. Anything else? Brian Thomas, he's just good.
Yeah. It doesn't matter who the quarterback for either of these guys, Neighbors or Brian Thomas. They've both found ways to be successful with terrible quarterback play this year.
Absolutely. This guy's awesome, man. Brian Thomas has almost 1,100 yards with terrible offensive line, terrible quarterback, terrible coaching for a lot of the season. But he's been better with Mac Jones. And granted, Christian Kirk's out, Gabe Davis, all that stuff, Evan Ingram. But he's got 30-plus DraftKings points in back-to-back games. The guy's been fantastic. Back-to-back 100-yard games, double-digit targets in 4 straight. I don't even care who he's facing at this point. Brian Thomas is viable.
Yeah, so for also LSU just churns out good NFL wide receivers. Yeah. If somebody goes to LSU, and this is going to be a new thing for me going forward. If somebody's a rookie wide receiver coming out of LSU, I'm just blindly interested in them. Same way I feel like with guards coming out of Kentucky for NBA.
How about tight ends before we wrap this up? Very interesting Saturday and Sunday slates. 3 and 8 games. Not a ton of top-tier quarterbacks at all on Sunday. Outside of Josh Allen, who I think is going to be tough to get to. Highest priced quarterback, $6,900 Baker Mayfield, assuming Hurts is in fact out. Jacob, do one favor for me. Go to lineups and go to exposure caps Set Juwan Johnson at like 15 and set Foster Moreau to 5. You're going to just type, you got to type them in. It's going to take you forever to find that. Let's see what happens.
That'll automatically adjust the lineups. So,
yep.
A lot of Hawkinson now.
So Durham didn't really come up and Chig didn't come up. I thought they may have, but they didn't.
Nah, it's the reason is just because there's other cheaper tight ends that project better. Like Jake Ferguson came up a good amount for us. Strange came up. Hawkinson came way up because Hawkinson was around, I think, 30% or something before, maybe even less than that. And he went up to 46%.
Anything else you want to look at before we get out of here? By the way, always appreciate you guys hanging out with us on Friday. We enjoyed doing this show. This is helping me quite a bit because I haven't looked at a ton for the main slate yet.
Yeah, just in terms of Hawkinson there, one quarterback that we had some of, but not a ton that we didn't look at some of the lineups. If you're going to build Sam Darnold stacks, Darnold to Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson, I think that's a pretty solid stack, especially if more value opens up.
As always, you ever want to check out all of the tools, join any sports book, Stokastic Sims, get it free, or simply go to stokastic.com/HOF, download one of those beautiful avatars. We saw a ton of them on the Christmas Day slate. They were everywhere, littered across the leaderboards, man. You love seeing that type of stuff. Use them, stokastic.com/HOF. You'll see it. There's 6 avatars you can choose from. Download it and then use it wherever it is you play. DraftKings, FanDuel, Yacht Owner's Box, doesn't matter. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more and just tweet your wins to us at Stokastic HOF. You get a free month of the max package, $200 value. Win twice in a calendar year, that's silver tier. Get a free month again and get another week of any sport you want. Win 3 times, full month of Sims Max All Access, $550 value, or any 20K plus win, no matter the entry fee. Get that beautiful Stokastic custom engraved ring in the spinning display case. Yeah, and assert dominance over everybody who has questions because now you are the man or the woman. Yeah, check it out, though. Just hit us up. Tweet us your wins at Stokastic HOF. Rock the avatar wherever it is you play. Anything else before we go?
No, that's all. If you guys haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.
Appreciate you guys. We'll see you back here. Well, you got basketball tonight, but for football, Sunday, full out 4-hour live stream taking you all the way up to 1 p.m. Have a great weekend, guys. We'll see you soon.